What's up, guys? It's me, Daniel, with VintageMagic.com, and it is fall. Look at this thing. Look at the beautiful trees. And look at Lulu. Look at Lulu. She's doing good. Yeah, she's doing all right. Lulu's doing all right. As you guys know, I appreciate all the love in the last video. My dog, Boo Boo, he passed away. So we've been kind of trying to hold down the fort here as a family and moving forward. But today's video is a very, very, very important topic. As you guys know, those of you who watched Eternal Weekend last weekend for the Vintage Championship, the North American Championship, Workshops took it down in the finals. Actually, it was 100% going to be Workshops because it was first and second place Workshops. 5 of the decks were Workshops. 3 were Oath decks, which are pretty much like a, blue-based deck with, kind of combo elements and, control elements and such like that, but mostly control elements. So you could say that the nasty Workshops took over. And for the record, I don't think Workshop decks have won the Vintage Champs officially for a very long time. Now, so there's this discussion. Let's take a look at MISHRA'S Workshop. For those of you who do not know what the card is, it is probably one of the most iconic vintage cards out there. What it does is it basically lets you cast things cheap if you're playing artifacts. And so this is Unreal. You have tap to add 3 colorless mana for any artifact casting. Can only be used for artifact casting. Now, for those of you out there who are thinking, well, that's only good because you can cast artifacts, but it's horrible if you want to pay upkeep. You're right. You're exactly right. It kind of sucks if you got to pay an upkeep, which was why Energy Flux is incredibly powerful against artifact decks. Hint, hint, everybody. Energy Flux for the win against Workshop decks. But the question that's coming about, the question that's people arguing about online, on Twitter, and there's like an article by Brian DeMars on Channel Fireball about restricting Workshops, and then LSV, Luis Scott Vargas from Channel Fireball, just did a video about why Workshops should be restricted. A very interesting video. He keeps going back and forth about why he thinks and why he shouldn't. But I think in the end, he thinks it should be restricted. I want to talk to you guys about what I think because I'm coming from a very interesting point of view. I don't want to... I'm not going to talk about Workshops like a way that a player would do officially because I don't play a lot of Vintage. But I'm going to talk about it as what I call like the pillars of Vintage, and what Vintage has become. So in Vintage, there's basically Workshop, Dredge, which is using 4 Bizarre Baghdad's. 4. You got to have 4 or you're basically screwed in many ways. And then you also are having the blue decks with Mentor and got Oath in the mix. And you got some combo decks, sometimes like Goblin Charbelcher. And then you also have, Voltaic Key combo. And you also have some Eldrazi, white Eldrazi type of deck that is pretty powerful. But the Workshop deck is powered by MISHRA'S Workshop. And a lot of people feel that MISHRA'S Workshop is just OP, meaning overpowered. I got to tell you that, let's say that you take away MISHRA'S Workshop, 4 of, and you restrict them down to 1. Effectively, what you're doing is you're eliminating one of the pillars of Vintage. Because what's going to happen is Workshop decks will not have the ability to play the artifact. I mean, what's the point of calling it a Workshop deck if you don't have 4 Workshops? Because if you have 1 Workshop, your percentage, your mathematics of getting 1 Workshop and letting that stick with like 1 strip mine in play for most people or ways to, there's other ways to destroy lands, I guess. But how is that fair? I think that you should have 4 strip mines available if you're going to allow 4 workshops. That might be a good, interesting play. I think that might be a counter. I mean, that could change the metagame for Vintage. Because I do agree that how nasty is it that Bazaar, dredge players are able to get that turn 1 Bazaar and start dredging. And really you have like strip mine as really the only option to get that Bazaar out. And it's, workshops the same way. You let 1 or 2 workshops drop and the game's going to be over, in the sense that those workshop decks can start overpowering you with artifact creatures and you're just going to get pummeled. Is that really fair for the blue decks and all the other combo decks and all the decks out there for Vintage? I understand why people are all hung up at it, because they're tired. They're tired of losing to like annoying spells such as like Chalice of the Void. Well, it's a 1-up drop, but a Thorn of Amethyst or Sphere of Resistance, or things that are just going to slow your ass down, like Tangle Wire. Is that kind of annoying? And is it unfair to basically have a Black Lotus for 1 land to cast whatever the hell you want for artifacts? Sounds pretty unfair to me, because you have 4 Black Lotuses and 4 workshops, and you also have Black Lotus and all the other moxes on top of that. Doesn't seem very fair, does it? But I guess, the thing is, I think a lot of interest has been going on because blue decks this year, I think what's going on is blue decks this year did not perform very well at all. Eternal Champs, Vintage Champs. I was watching the live stream. I thought it was a really great event. A lot of great players, and I could tell you right off the bat, yeah, I think a lot of blue players are pissed. They're tired of it, because in a tournament setting, workshop decks, I think, have more of a consistency. They're able to cast more spells and, roadblock spells, I would call it. The Tangle Wires of the world, the Sphere of Resistance and stuff like that, to slow your opponent down. And the blue spells are just sitting back thinking, man, my Force of Wills can't do shit. It's maybe a one-time Force of Will, but what else can I do? It's gotten a very interesting pickle, because you can't even, sometimes a good workshop on the play basically fucks you over immediately. I mean, you basically, as a blue player, can't cast any spells because they're going to Tangle Wire, they're going to Thorn of Amethyst, they're going to Sphere of Resistance. You basically have to pay so much mana, which you're never really going to be able to, by the time they even get like a Lodestone Golem, because they restricted that also. There's only 1 Lodestone Golem. The days of having 4 Lodestone Golems are gone. So maybe the answer is to have 4 MISHRA'S Workshops down to 1. But I disagree with that still, not because of a financial standpoint. I'm not going to look at it from like pure money. I'm looking at it from a pillar of Vintage. Workshop decks, MISHRA'S Workshop, right, is a pillar of Vintage. And if you took that to 1 card, I'm pretty sure that would just eliminate a pillar of our entire game for Vintage. The whole archetype. You eliminate it because there's really 1 workshop. Yeah, sure, you'll still run it, but is it going to perform well in tournaments? Is it going to be, are you going to be able to cast those artifact spells? No, you're not. It's going to be very, very difficult. I think it's going to be more challenging. And I think you also eventually will eliminate one of the pillars of Vintage. And then blue decks would just run them all over, run everybody all over. I think that's what needs to be done, is that people just want to see workshop decks die so blue decks take over. It's interesting. It's like blue decks are kind of like the thing. Everybody loves blue, loves drawing cards. Whoa, draw more cards. They hate the fact that workshop decks dominate and you basically can't draw shit because you can't cast anything. What is the answer, guys? Put it in the comments below. I want to hear what the hell you got to say, because it's one of the most interesting debates I've ever seen in Magic. Why will restricting MISHRA'S Workshop, will that really change the metagame enough where it basically will force Workshop decks to basically change their strategies, evolve, and will it keep the one of the pillars of Vintage, MISHRA'S Workshop, alive? Or will it kill it forever? If MISHRA'S Workshop was restricted, will it kill one of the pillars of Vintage? I want to know that in the comments below because I'm curious to know what you guys think. I, for one, think it would kill it. It would kill one of the pillars of Vintage because you are eliminating this. You're eliminating this powerhouse to cast all those artifact spells. And you're basically saying, nope, there's only 1 out of 60 cards in my main deck, and that's my only possibility. Is that really the way it's going to be? It's like saying 1 Bazaar Baghdad for Dredge. Let's eliminate one of the most important, one of the pillars of Vintage is Dredge. It's a mechanic that a type of deck you see in Vintage prominently that has performed well in tournaments. And you're just saying, no, let's eliminate that. Because the blue deck people want to cry about it. Tell me in the comments below. Probably not the most, you guys probably get pissed and be like, well, Dan's all for MISHRA'S Workshop. Dan just cares about workshops because that means all his workshops are not going to go down. Okay, guys, if MISHRA'S Workshop is restricted and they go down, I'm going to be buying a ton more workshops and then they will keep going back up. Because I'm telling you right now, Workshop is an icon. It is a reserve list card. It is something I will keep buying all the time. So that is not the answer, guys. The question is, I feel like it affects it as a pillar of the game. It affects it as an archetype. You're basically eliminating historical memories and matches of important archetype. MISHRA'S Workshop in Vintage. All right, guys. Talk to you guys soon. You guys have a freaking good day. Blue players, eat it.